Okay, so I'm about to rivet the trailing edge of the rudder, and I've put this off for a little while because I wanted to get a little more practice first. So that's actually what I did last weekend. Was I took my practice kit here, drilled out all the rivets in the trailing edge, and redid them. And I actually did that multiple times. So at this point, this is pretty beat up. The holes are all oversized, and I really abused this thing. But it gave me a chance to try out a couple of different methods and to get some more practice. So that was good. I got a lot of practice drilling out double flush rivets too, which no trick to it, but still. So when I first did that kit months ago, I used this tool. It's basically just a pair of sets, flat sets that goes in the squeezer that are at a slight angle, so that when they come together, the angle corresponds to the angle of the trailing edge. That worked fine. I was happy with those results. But I did want to try out the method that the plans describes, which is to use a narrow flat set in the rivet gun and back rivet, the double flush rivets. So the way they tell you to do that is of course the rivet is sticking up. So against the back rivet plate, the shank is sticking up. You start, you come straight down when you first start out as you buck, and then you kind of angle it. You twist it at an angle. You angle the gun as you come down until you align with the angle of the top skin. That seemed like it would be a little tricky, like it would take some practice. So I figured, let me try that out. It wasn't that bad. I actually I thought it wasn't really any more difficult than using the squeezer, and I actually think it might give slightly better results. So unfortunately, I haven't really made up my mind yet about how I'm going to do this. I may do a little bit of both and see what happens. I had to buy this set. I didn't have a narrow flat set. All my flat sets are mushroom sets, so I did go ahead and buy that for this purpose. And as far as which way I'm going to put the rivets through, so I know some people alternate them so that every other one goes the other way, because the flush shop head does not quite look the same, doesn't quite fill in the dimple the way the factory shop head does. I think I'm going to alternate them. Just the idea of the symmetry sort of appeals to me. I'm sure in the end it's not really going to make any difference one way or the other, but I think I can alternate them without it being too much of a pain. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've got my back rivet plate here. I've got a piece of carpet to sort of lift it up and get things level. It's not quite the same height, but I think it should be okay. And then I've put rivets through every other hole and taped them. Now, I've also marked off, let's see, it's about every 9th hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so I can do every 9th hole, and then come back and do the ones in between those. The only question now is I'm not sure if this is going to slide when I start angling the rivet gun. So I may put some weights over there. Okay. Well, that seems pretty good. Okay. Now this guy. So what I was doing with the little steel rule there was just kind of running it along to check and see if I had really gotten the rivet flush. And then I decided to hit it a couple more times with the gun. I ended up doing that a lot. Not so much checking with the rule, but just feeling with my fingers and then deciding to buck the rivet one or two more hits. Not sure if that was a great idea. I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video. But yeah, I ended up marking off every 9th rivet is what I decided to do. So I went and worked my way out from the middle, every 9th rivet, then came back and did the ones centered between those two, and then cut that in half again until I got down to where I had riveted in every other hole. Here I'm just checking with a long straight edge, making sure that everything is staying straight, which it was. So you can see I pretty quickly abandoned thinking that I needed the weights to hold everything still. Didn't seem to be necessary at all. All right, well those look great. So flipped it over, put in every other rivet from the other side, taped it up, followed the same procedure, working my way out from the center and doing every 9th hole and then cutting that in half and cutting that in half again until I was done. And you'll notice, I thought this was going to be my opportunity to use that back riveting plate that I sunk down into my table, but I wasn't able to use it for this either because the rudder control horn would get in the way. I wouldn't be able to lay the rudder flat on the table where it would line up with that back rivet plate. So didn't end up using it. All right. Well, what it's worth. Huh. Pretty good, I think. Yeah. All right. Can live with that. Okay, so that went about as well as I could hope for. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good considering it's my first time with this thing really, and first trailing edge on the airplane. So I did the whole thing with this set, this narrow flat set. The place I bought it from actually calls it a suicide set, and I'm not really sure why, but that was disconcerting when I bought it, but it worked fine. And there's a couple of places actually when I would look through these as I was riveting, the area around the rivet looked really good, and I didn't slip off or mar it or hit the skin with the edge of this anywhere. So I was really happy with how that turned out. But then when I get back and I look with a reflection of light come through the window or whatever, there's places where I can see it's kind of a little wavy, right around the rivet. So my guess is where that pro seal is, and then the rivet, sort of crunches the skin down, and maybe the pro seal kind of bulges up. That's a little bit of a guess. Maybe I used a little too much pro seal, but overall, really happy with it. It's nice and straight. I can put this straight edge along it, and there is there's places where some light gets through. It's not perfect, but the plans say you need to be within to try to have less gap, to try to have less than 1/10 of an inch over a 1 inch of gap over a 1 inch span. which seems like a lot. That seems like a pretty big gap, or that it would be pretty wavy. I don't have anywhere near that. I can see a little light. I was sort of trying to judge it by trying to slip that little steel rule under, where the gap was, and really couldn't even do that. Maybe if I tried hard enough, there's some spots I could find, but overall, not anywhere close to 1/10 of an inch across the whole thing. So, like I say, I'm really happy with that. So, the next step is going to be to bend or to roll these leading edges. And I'm actually going to take the step after that is to put a little bend in the edge of one of them, whichever one's going to be on top. I've seen recommendations to do that step first, and that kind of makes sense, or at least before you get it really rolled over, because then it's going to get in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to one side, and then I've got a piece of PVC that I'm going to use to try to bend these, to try to roll these leading edge pieces of the skin here. So that's next.